magazine.
Hello, once again. I am your host, Doc Rotten, and this is Gruesome Magazine, where we review the very latest in theatrical and streaming horror movies. Each week, the Gruesome Magazine Grue-Crew will take a look at various spooky, scary, and gory genre offerings. Tonight, we're reviewing Godzilla x Kong, The New Empire, in theaters now, making a killing. Yes. And joining me tonight, I am very proud to reintroduce our returning guest host, kaiju fan, monster kid, effects artist, suit actor, the one and only DIRK Rogers. DIRK, how you doing?
I'm great. I am absolutely wonderful. How are you?
Doing good. So let's talk about, before we get into things,
sure,
and all the shiznizzle of all this, let's talk about your love of Godzilla, because it is huge. It's kaiju sized love.
It runs
Tell me
deep.
About it.
Godzilla is when I was 3 years old, the first thing I ever wanted to be was a paleontologist. Godzilla, when I saw my first film at age 3, which was Ghidorah, it impacted me so much because it made the dinosaurs have personality. I actually made a report and took it to preschool, and I did a report on the film. Ever since then, that love just got deeper and deeper. When I started doing suit acting, I would hang up a picture in my trailer or wherever I was allowed to dress of Haru Nakajima as my inspiration, who I consider the greatest of all suit actors. I would say the only other person that comes close to him would be Lon Chaney Sr., who is a monster guy, but not really a suit guy. Every Godzilla film, with the exception of TriStars 98, I love. I'll defend all of them. Obviously, Godzilla vs. Megalon and just all of them. Yeah, my love of the kaiju runs deep. It's part of my DNA.
Part of your DNA. You even recently, post COVID, went to Japan.
I did.
And visited some of the Godzilla-sized landmarks, right?
I did. I stayed at the Grue-Crew Hotel, which has the Godzilla room, and I proposed to my fiance now in front of Toho Studios, specifically in front of the Godzilla statue that's in front of the guard shack, which, when I was doing my research of this is where I'm going to propose to her, I didn't realize that there was a guard shack right off of the picture about 10 feet. So when I got done proposing to her, I turn and look, and all these guards are going, yeah!
Nice.
A little embarrassing, but I had
to. It's great. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Did you get to go on the what is it? The zip line that goes
the
through
zip line down into Shin Godzilla's mouth? I didn't. That's at I believe it's at a park that's pretty much all anime, and it was about 5 hours outside of Tokyo. So we didn't want to spend 10 hours driving since we were only there for a limited time. But we are planning on going back there once we're married so that we can do the zip line as well.
There you go. Yeah. And you recently got some zip line practice, I know. So now
you're
ready for it. You're ready for it. All right. Well, DIRK, thank you for all that. I appreciate it. I knew I wanted to have you back on to review this movie, Godzilla x Kong, The New Empire, because you are such a Godzilla fan, and I am as well, and also a King Kong fan. I love the new Monarch stuff. I love the old stuff. Mm-hmm. Yeah, 98. Yeah, you can live without that one. The cartoon worked, though. The cartoon worked.
Cartoon was okay. Agreed. That's the only good thing that came out of the 98. Well, I would say that in the just side note, the 98, I would say that the opening scene where you see his claw comes through the side of the Japanese trawler, I thought that was great. And I enjoyed when the fishing boats all catch him in the line and get pulled back underwater. I thought that was a great scene. But Godzilla running away from helicopters or anything else, and the whole Jurassic Park tie-in with the baby Godzillas, it was just a cash grab. And it just didn't do it for me.
I wanted it to be great.
I did too.
I wanted it to be great. I was there on the first weekend.
So was I.
But all right. Well, let's talk about something a lot better. And what we're going to do tonight is we're going to start off giving our first impressions. Those first impressions will be spoiler free. no spoilers. And there are spoilers. There's a number of spoilers.
Indeed.
And then we'll get into a discussion, and those discussions will be full of spoilers, and we're going to just go spoiler deep, get into all of it and talk about it and give you our full skinny. And then we'll wrap things up with our score 1 to 5 and our favorite scene. And of course, we hope you enjoy not only this review, but many others that we have on the site. And if you do, please hit the like, subscribe, and share with a friend buttons. And regardless, above all, we thank you for listening. So let's take a look at the card, sir, and get things going.
Yes.
Boom. All right.
Sorry, that poster on the right is amazing.
I had to choose that poster for this the image. It's the international poster, so it has a date that doesn't match the U.S. release date. It's the 28th, but it was released in the States on the 29th. Godzilla x Kong, the new empire from Warner Brothers. The synopsis is: two ancient titans, Godzilla and Kong, clash in an epic battle as humans unravel their intertwined origins and connection to Skull Island's mysteries. That tells us nothing. Directed by Adam Wingard, written by Terry Rossio, Simon Barrett, and Jeremy Slater. Cast includes Rebecca Hall, Dan Stevens, Brian Tyree Henry, and Kaylee Hoddle. And kaijus left and right. So we will take a look at that. But I'm so glad you pointed out that poster, because that poster is quite spectacular.
Yeah, the poster is actually a bit of a reflection of the movie, in that Kong is a little more predominant in it than Godzilla is. Godzilla is kind of, I don't know, Kong's just a little more popping in that poster, just like the movie.
He is. There is a slight washed out feel to the Godzilla, which is surprising because you would think they would push Godzilla overseas over top of Kong.
Kind of, except Wingard has stated in interviews that he feels that Kong is the main monster in the MonsterVerse over Godzilla, because he feels that he's much more relatable than Godzilla, which I of course disagree with.
I disagree with it, but I think maybe for most public, maybe he's not too far off. But for us monster kids and kaiju fans, Godzilla rule supreme. I mean, absolutely. As much as I love King Kong, or just Kong in this case, yeah, I still.
And I love what the MonsterVerse has done with King Kong. I love the personality that they've given him. He's certainly the one you root for, but I just want them to give that same personality to Godzilla. Yep. So
they kind of do, but not as much. Not as much. All right, let's start off giving our first impressions. Dirk, you're up first. What was your first impression of Godzilla x Kong?
My first impression was I was watching the Showa series through a Transformers filter.
That's not too far off.
It was colorful. The CG had no weight. There was huge gaps in logic, and I saw it in the 4D theater. So my seat, every time they fought, my seat was like beating the shit out of me, to where I was like, I can't even watch the movie. But yeah, my first impression would be that it just reminded me of what Toho did with Godzilla after the first few films, when they started trying to cater more to a youthful audience. And I feel that this film was certainly trying to garner a younger audience. And I think it's actually a bit to the detriment of the older fans, unless you're someone like me or you who grew up with all the Godzillas, and you can kind of see the transition from. Also, one other thing I'll say is my viewing of this film was certainly colored by having just watched Godzilla -1, which I knew it was going to be totally two different films, but -1 left such an impact on me. It's a perfect film, let alone a perfect Godzilla film. And so going into this was just like, it was a bit like watching a kid with his Godzilla toy going, So yeah, Godzilla Showa series, Godzilla film done through a Transformers filter.
I really like that description of it. So I had a blast with this. It's sure it's got logic flaws. I thought the CGI looked great, even if it didn't have the weight. They moved great. They were very expressive. Both Kong and Godzilla.
Mhm.
And the Scar King. The Scar King had some really wonderful body language to it.
Agreed.
Which
Agreed.
we know about Scar King from the trailer. And I thought I would, we also know about the little Kong creature.
Yes.
And I was a little worried about baby Kong or small Kong or little Kong, whatever we're calling him. But I thought they handled him really well too. He's a little snarky, a little bit of a rebel. So he won me over very quickly. By the time he was throwing rocks at other apes floating around in space. For me, it's very brisk. It's fast paced. A little redundancy there. The human characters are smaller by volume. There's only a handful that we're watching, and as opposed to like this group and that group, as in the past couple of features, there were a little too many people. You really couldn't concentrate on them. Of that, some of them work, some don't, but I didn't dislike any of them. Right. There's also no real human baddie here, like there have been in the past Monsterverse ones with Monarch or the Apex company. But Rebecca Hall and Kaylee Otto as Eileen and Gia, the young girl who has a connection with Kong, I thought they were fantastic. And she, especially Gia, the Kaylee Huddle, really did a lot to carry this film, and I really enjoyed that. Dan Stevens was a lot of fun, and he's been getting a lot of notice for that. And Brian Tyree Henry was a lot of fun as well. But
I'm sorry. I felt that Brian, Bernie, the character Bernie, to me, he was a little over the top. I do feel that Kaylee Hoddle, I believe, I think she was the strongest actor, human actor in the film, and she didn't speak a word. But I know that she's kind of the anchor for the humans, for the audience, but I just felt that she gave a wonderful, wonderful performance.
Yep.
Dan Stevens, he was channeling Jack Burton.
Perfect.
But that's okay. Again, he was a little over the top, but not as much as I felt that the Bernie character was just.
He was your comic relief.
Yeah, but it was a little too much for me. It just, when you're in Hollow Earth and you have the camera and you're too busy to film, and I understand that's kind of what his character's about, but as a human, when you're in that kind of situation, I just feel that the writing for him was a little too over the top for me.
Yeah, this does play like a live action cartoon quite a bit. We do get a lot more kaiju action than we do. I mean, I don't know if you remember when Gareth Edwards, his the other one does the action movies, right? Never mind, it doesn't matter. When they did Godzilla, we always complained we want more Godzilla in our Godzilla movies, right? But I thought there was plenty of kaiju in this. I mean, we got a lot of Kong. There was a lot of scenes where there wasn't any dialogue at all. It was just kaiju creatures.
There was 8 minutes of no dialogue in the film. That was just kaijus interacting, facial expressions and such.
And they did a great job. Now, most of that is on the Kong side, interacting with other Kong-like creatures, Scar King and others. And they had personality. And like we mentioned, the Scar King himself had some really wonderful body language, kind of leaning a little bit and stuff. But
when he sees Kong's tooth, he's like,
he does, yes. So in the end, I had a blast with it. I'm still not sure if I like it more than any of the other films, but at the same time, it feels, to me, there's a lot in here that would make it an improvement over the other films, even though there are some things that kind of pull it away. And it's mostly because it's more creatures, more kaiju than it is humans. And I gave a crap about the humans for once. So
yeah,
at least a couple of them.
For me, out of the Monsterverse, I think Doherty's King of Monsters for me is the strongest film of all of them. And between this one and the first Godzilla vs. Kong, I like the previous one a little bit more. I think that's mostly because this one had that I'm not a fan of the Transformer films, and I just kept being reminded of it while I was watching. Now, like you, I had a blast watching this film, and I came out and I was all jazzed. But the weightlessness, and not, I mean, literally that one scene where we're in spoilers.
Yeah, let's go ahead and announce we're in spoilers. We're going to start revealing some surprises. If you haven't seen it, what the hell are you waiting for? Go watch it. But go ahead, Dirk.
The scene towards the end of the climactic fight where everything goes weightless and they're kind of flying around.
Mm-hmm.
It was okay, but I don't know. I never felt the peril that I felt in like King of Monsters with Ghidorah and Rodan and all the others, like just decimating everyone. And one of the other things in this film that there was a scene that kind of reminded me of all things of Superman, Man of Steel, because there's a scene towards the end, the Rio de Janeiro scene, and they just mow down building after building after building, and there's like thousands of people in there, and they're just wiped away, and there is no mention, there is no
collateral damage left and right.
But there's no weight to it. It's not even acknowledged unless you're like, maybe those buildings were all empty, but
they weren't empty.
No,
and they also destroy a number of, Ace Wonders of the world. Humor. But the pyramids.
The fight between Wingard has said that the fight between Kong and Godzilla during the pyramid scene is directly inspired from the fight of They Live between Rowdy Roddy and Keith David, which of course is inspired by a fight from The Quiet Man with John Wayne and Maureen O'Hara. So.
They weren't fighting. He was fighting somebody else.
Exactly.
Right. That'd be a short fight if he was fighting Maureen O'Hara.
Marino. Oh, yeah, I guess it would be. Yeah. It was someone else. Sorry. I don't get out a lot.
Doesn't matter. But anyway, but let's start talking about some of the kaiju. We know about 3.5 of the kaiju, right? We know.
Right.
We know Godzilla, Kong, Scar King, and the baby ape creature. What do we know officially what that creature is called?
I don't know. I believe it's in the trivia on the IMDb, but I don't remember. I think it had 2 different names, and I think they named the toy as well, but I don't know offhand what it was called. I just call it Baby Kong.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I was going.
And there's a scene where they show Scar King on his throne, and they have a bunch of apes kind of to the side with little kids. So it's kind of alluded to that he's the son of Scar King, and that Scar King has been breeding with a bunch of the other giant apes, which is, I'm guessing, why the mini Kong or whatever, son of Kong, is orange. But yeah,
right.
And then there's other, there's Tiamat, who's in Godzilla, is the reason that Godzilla becomes the fluorescent pink, because he absorbs his energy in preparation for the fight. Which to me, Tiamat just kind of reminded me of Manda, the original from the original series. The gold dragon that was in like Royal Monsters and such.
Yeah, that actually made a lot. I mean, okay, so let's stop, pause just a minute, and talk about Pink Godzilla, because there's a couple things that you and I, when we were discussing the trailer, ways back, that we were talking about, that kind of like, oh, what are they doing? One was, Godzilla and Kong running side by side. We'll talk about that here in a little bit. And the other is Pink Godzilla. Now, Pink Godzilla got a lot of notes on that, right? And I wasn't sure, but it looked fine to me, visually. I mean, I was up for what they were doing. I liked the blue one or the green one better, but in context, it made sense.
Yeah, I would agree. The fact that he absorbs the energy of another kaiju and it supercharges him. Again, though, I go to the Doherty film where when he supercharges at the end, it becomes like Fire Godzilla, and he's a more red and orange. The pink was okay. In context of the film, it was fine. It didn't take me out of the film when he did supercharge. And I did like towards the end when his eyes kind of had that haze coming off of him when he was fighting Shimu and Scar King. I thought that was fine. But yeah, I don't like Godzilla's long arms in this. And again, when I saw the trailer and I saw him running next to Kong, that didn't do it for me at all. It reminded me of like a Starsky and Hutch.
But there's a reason why, right?
Yeah. But he, oh yeah. Well, so Wingard has said that the inspiration for this film is the movie Lethal Weapon, which I didn't see at the time, but after I did a little research on it, I could see where he was drawing from it. But in actually in the scene where they both come out of the ground and they're running at Shimu and Scar King, and I was thinking to myself, oh, I don't hate this as much as I did in the trailer. The thing I didn't like in that is a later scene when they all jump at each other and they stop and they do this frozen image of all four of their faces as they're coming in to attack each other. And then the gravity drops and everyone flies away or whatever. But everything that I'm talking about, though, didn't remove my enjoyment of the film. It took me back to that Showa series, the Showa era, where, Godzilla did the dances and he flew on his tail. And, when we reviewed in the 70s Godzilla versus Megalon, I'm a staunch fan. Mm-hmm. Speaking of that, there are a couple of little trivia notes when Godzilla's in Rome. There's actually graffiti on one of the walls of Hedorah's eye, and next to it says the words "Save the," as in save the Earth. And there's also a shot of Jet Jaguar's arm with the words "Punch, punch, punch," which was Jet Jaguar's song from Godzilla.
Punch, punch, punch.
Yeah. There's a couple of other little trivia things too from that, which is in that next to all of those, there's also a shot of Knifehead from Pacific Rim is one of the graffiti.
Ooh, and then that's different.
In keeping with Pacific Rim, Kong's glove, when they first show it on the screen as a blueprint, that's actually Gypsy Danger, the Jaeger from Pacific Rim. That's his arm that they used. So yeah.
Are they trying to suggest something? Maybe, I don't know. But let's talk about. I hope not. So is the Transformer thing just the arm? Is that the only thing that gave you the Transformer vibe, or is there something else that gives you Transformer?
The weightlessness of the CG of the kaijus moving too fast for their size. The color scheme is a little too bright for me. Some of the monster action reminded me of a lot of the Transformer films where the robots come together and they go like this, and you're like, I can't even tell what the hell's going on. Now, some of that I was sitting at a 4D theater, so my seat, like I said, was beating me up at the time. So I was trying to watch the film, and I literally was being moved around. But yeah, I would say the Kong arm, I didn't have a problem with the Kong arm. It took me back to King Kong versus Mecha Kong, or King Kong Escapes, rather.
Yeah, King Kong Escapes, yeah.
My issue with that was Dan Stevens going, I've got an idea. There happens to be this finished arm that's in this decimated outpost that I'll just fly over and grab and drop it on his arm. Thank God it's made for the same arm. And he's about to, Kong's like laying there, like passed out, and it lands on him, it injects him, and suddenly he's like, ah! That kind of Michael Bay version of giant monsters and that kind of stuff, that it's not much my bag, but the 10-year-old in me was loving it. So
the 10-year-old me was loving it as well. All right, so we'll talk about Scar King here in a minute. And you mentioned the other main kaiju that has been, for the most part, absent from the trailers, except for the eyes. Or if you look very closely, you can see it in one of the cityscapes. What was that creature again?
Shimu, which is Japanese for frost or gray hair. But I would say they probably are.
They meant frost. Yeah, and it was basically a frost dragon of sorts.
Yeah, which kind of, its design actually kind of reminded me of the Rotosaur from Beast from 20,000 Fathoms, which, as most hard Godzilla fans would know, is the inspiration for Godzilla. The Tomoyuki Tanaka, I can't believe I just choked on that. The original producer of Godzilla, who created the idea, he saw the Beast from 20,000 Fathoms and then said, we need to make our version of this. And that's where Godzilla kind of came from.
There you go. Did it better. Now, early on, there is a spider creature. Is that different than the spider creature that I'm familiar with from the 60s?
Yeah, this one has more of a Cthulhu kind of, how's it called? Is it Scylla? Scylla? Scylla, I think. Scylla. He was in King of the Monsters, the couple of shots. That that fight between him and Godzilla, I love that Godzilla ripped him apart and was kind of bathed in his guts and all. But to me, they move so fast for being such large creatures that kind of took me out of a little bit. I know that Wingard had said when he told some of the CG artists when they were building it that he wanted to base it off of some of the early Godzilla video games. There were like 3 video games that came out, I think, on PlayStation or whatnot back in the day. And I think he wanted the fights to be that. So I think some of that weightlessness and that fast moving might be indicative of him referencing those video games. But for me, I just want more weight with something that big. You know, I don't want Godzilla jumping off the Rock of Gibraltar and flying over the camera like he does in this movie. I want to see the camera and ground shake because he's so immense. He's the king of monsters. So
yeah, and that's one of the things they did beautifully well in the Godzilla -1 is that when Godzilla stomps through the town,
oh yeah,
you feel it. You feel it. You feel it.
Really do.
But this isn't about that. This is about them all fighting. And all right, so we do get a gallery of apes along with Scar King, and some of them have more personality than others. The other ones are just like run of the mill, you know, like all the other apes that are sitting in the auditorium or in the stands for Planet of the Apes. Yeah. they're just there with masks on. But there's a couple of them that, you know, get extra shots or, you know, have a little bit more to do with the story, even though they have no dialogue, and they're wonderfully realized as well. But agreed. Scar King, I thought he was going to be a little bit, you know, like thicker and heavier.
I did too.
Like
I was kind of surprised when he started showing, and he was like lanky, and I was, wow, that's a little bit different than he was shown in the trailer, which is fine. It was a nice surprise.
But yeah, his arms are like, you know, like orangutan long and stuff
Very
hanging
much.
down. But yeah, but it works. It works. It differentiates him from all the other apes and Kong, and because Kong is very, you know, girth. He's very thick,
portly.
And his body language, they did a wonderful job with him kind of leaning in and you know, he's had swagger. They actually gave this character swagger, so that was awesome.
Agreed. Yeah, he definitely was portrayed as the ape in charge, and did it through intimidation.
Very much so.
When he kills the mother of baby Kong, by kind of goes up and then turns around and then boots her from behind into the lava pit, and he's just kind of like, whatever. I was like, oh yeah, this guy's a bastard. I like him. He's good.
Yep. Now, I did too. What else do we want to say about all the creatures and monsters? Is there any other tidbits from Adam Wingard about inspiration and stuff that we need to talk about?
Well, a little bit of my digging, I found that the fight between Scar King and Kong, that's in that auditorium in the hollow earth, whatever it is, was, Wingard has said that was inspired by the fight between Lee Marvin and Ernest Borgnine in the movie Emperor of the North.
Oh wow!
On the train,
okay.
Because I guess one of them uses a chain and one of them uses a fire axe, so it's very similar.
Now I'm glad you mentioned that. Let's talk about the bone chain with the I guess the tooth or the claw or whatever is at the end that he uses to control. I don't know, but whatever it was.
That was like he would point at Shimu and she would be like, and I was like, okay, is there like a remote control? Because when I first saw it glowing blue, I thought it was something from Godzilla, and you know, much like Kong's axe, which was one of his back plates, yeah. But it was never really explained. You know, again, it's little kid logic. He just would point at Shimu and Shimu would kind of, okay, I'll do what you say. But I thought the chain was great. And when he goes up against Godzilla with it, and Godzilla's just like, cronk, nah, snap. That's why Godzilla's the man.
Yeah. Yep.
Or the woman.
But I like that the fact that this Shimu wasn't necessarily bad.
Yeah,
he was just drawn that way. No, that he's basically a tool for the Scar King, and when the battle's over, he sides with Godzilla and Kong especially Kong as he goes back to the tribe. He goes along with them.
Yeah, and well, as we are in extreme spoilers now, I would say that end scene, now that Scar King has been vanquished, does this mean we now call Kong King Kong?
Well, okay. I was wanting them to do it because if he becomes the king, because Scar King is gone, he's King Kong. But I was expecting there to be a post credit scene, mid credits that would call him King Kong. But
I did too. And all there is Mothra. That's the only thing you get at the very end of the credits is you hear Mothra squeal.
Yep. And which is a character we haven't mentioned yet. We totally have ignored that. The J character, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or however you say it, Jaya. She basically is elevated to be basically what the twins were in the old Mothra films for, bringing Mothra around. So, which I really liked. And I thought Mothra looked incredibly more well realized here than in the previous one.
I agree. I felt that Mothra I liked her in King of Monsters, but I think she played a more pivotal role in this. My only thing with between her and Gia is when she goes up to try to stop, when Mothra goes up to the pyramid fight to try to stop Godzilla from killing Kong, and all of a sudden Gia's there. I was like, oh, was she hanging on the back? Was she in Mothra's mouth? Like, is she now, ethereal? Or it was one of those moments where, how the hell did she get there too?
There's a little teeny saddle.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I thought Mothra was great in it. I did want a little bit more of her. I love the shot where she's convinced both Kong and Godzilla to fight on the side of right, which is kind of a throwback to the earlier, what was it? I think it was Ghidorah, where it was Ghidorah in the Showa series, where Mothra is trying to get Godzilla and Rodan to put aside their differences to fight a bigger enemy, which is Ghidorah. And that's kind of what her role is in this film as well.
Right.
So,
but it was, there's a lot of more interesting things going on here. We don't have time to discuss, but I think we've done this proud. Let's go ahead and wrap this up. Let's give our score 1 to 5 and a favorite scene. Dirk, you are up first.
I was going to go for a 3.75, but I'm going to say 4. Just keep it at a 4. The things that keep it from being higher are things I've already said. I'm not a fan of Transformer films, and I felt that it leaned a little too much into that film franchise, intentionally or unintentionally. As for a favorite scene, I wish, being the giant Godzilla fan that I am, I do wish that my favorite scene was a Godzilla scene. However, as Wingard has stated, that to him, King Kong is the prime monster in all of the MonsterVerse, not Godzilla, because he feels he's more relatable. I will have to say that the scene where King Kong grabs Baby Kong and uses him as a weapon against the attacking apes and just starts beating the crap out of him with the little ape, I literally started laughing out loud. I thought that was amazing. It was great. So that would be my favorite scene.
That's hilarious. That was not the scene I was expecting you to pick. I'm going to give this a 4 as well. If it doesn't make my top 10 list, it's an honorable mention for certain. And I think it's a great time in the theater.
Agreed.
It was an absolute blast and should be seen in the theater.
Agreed. Absolutely.
We really didn't get to see the other Godzilla and Kong movie in the theater, or I don't know if you had the opportunity to, because it came out mid-COVID. So many of us didn't go to the theater to see it.
I did.
Did you? Excellent.
Yeah.
But it deserves to be seen in the theater because it's a big theater experience with these big giant monsters running around. And I don't think they're quite as ultra kinetic as the Transformer films. Michael Bay. It's not Michael Bay kinetic.
Then it's only a step, at least for me, it's only a step down from that.
Oh, I think it's a couple steps, but I'll give it to you that it's heading that direction comparatively for sure. But anyway, four is for me. My favorite scene. Oh gosh. which one am I going to pick? Because there's a lot. There's a lot. I don't know. I should have done this before the show. Why am I? Okay. I'm going to say when I was really impressed and I've mentioned this a couple times during the show, that when Scar King got off of his throne and walked out to begin the fight.
Yeah.
And he had that swagger to him, and he didn't stand up straight. He wasn't rigid. He basically had this little lean, and and it was really impressive. And the fact that he wasn't, because the trailers gave me the impression he was just going to be Kong size. He was going to be the same girth, the same. What'd you call it? I call it girth. That's something else. But what'd you call it?
He's lanky. Oh,
lanky. No, the opposite of that.
Kong, portly.
Portly. I thought he would be portly too, but he wasn't. And I liked that, and I liked the device he had, and even with the pointing. Of course, that wasn't part of it then, but he did give him some trouble. Cut his arm, cut his hand, and then of course, I guess once the creature did come out, it froze his arm. So I guess he did show up, didn't he?
Yeah.
And I will say I was worried because I saw the toys for I forget the frost dragon's creature's name. Was it Shima? When I saw Shima's toy, I was like, oh, that does not look good.
I agree. When I first saw it, I
thought
the same.
Yeah, but in context within the movie, Shima was fantastic, and I'm game for more. But there you go. That's what I'm thinking of it. And before we leave,
Yes.
One thing I wanted to happen is I wanted to have a cameo from
Kurt Russell.
Kurt Russell, because he's down there somewhere.
I was hoping we would get one. But fingers were crossed.
It makes sense that we didn't, but I was wanting it. What do you want next? Where does the monster series go now?
Well, Wingard has said that if he gets the okay, he would like to make this a trilogy. And I mean, the film was made for 135 million. I'm guessing that's after tax credits, and it made almost 200 million opening weekends. So I'm going to guess they're going to go ahead and greenlight another film. What I would like it, I'll go back to Doherty's version. I just like the weight of that film. I like the way it was shot. I like the way the monsters, the point of view of the monsters was usually from a human element, so they looked ginormous. Are you asking now, would I want another Kong Godzilla film, or do I want another kaiju film?
Do you want another kaiju coming in? Who do they fight? Do they come up with a brand new monster? Is there somebody from the series you want to see come back, like a Hedorah smog monster-y kind of thing? Or what do you want to see?
I'm a big fan of Biollante. I would like to see
that. No Jet Jaguar, huh?
Well, I always
King Caesar. King Caesar
is amazing too. We could go on and on and on. I would like to see a couple of standalone films. I'd like to see a Mothra film just with Mothra, and then maybe a couple of the other Titans that show up that she fights. One thing I really would like to see is I'd like to see more attention to Godzilla. If he's going to share the screen with Kong, I want Godzilla to be a little bit more, have more personality. I feel that he does have personality. I just feel that there's a little too much of an emphasis on Kong, and I understand because he's able to emote a little bit better because he's simian, but I think Godzilla can as well, especially with CG. You can pretty much do anything with him. And so, I would like to see, what I like to see? I like to see a Destroy All Monsters. I'd like to see, maybe not have Ghidorah be the big bad, but maybe have Space Godzilla or a whole new kind of Titan. And I would like the Destroy All Monsters to include like Mothra and Shimu. And then maybe like a Biollante and a couple other creatures. So I would like to see I would like to see individual movies, and I would like to see a giant monster bash. That's like Destroy All Monsters.
I'm with you as well. I'd like to see that. I'm curious to see who will pick up the mantle, if Adam will continue directing or if they'll bring in another director. But we're here to. The future is there. They will make another one because this movie's already outperformed the other one. Of course, the other one was crippled by COVID.
Yeah.
which is kind of remarkable that they put money into this one as well, even though I think it was already planned that they were doing it. So good on them. I think in the end, it's I mean, it's $1 billion series now, right? So
yeah.
So
I love it.
MonsterVerse
And Godzilla just in general is an Academy Award winning series. So
Yep.
love it.
All right, well there you go. That is our review of Godzilla X Kong: The New Empire. Leave some comments down below. Let us know what you thought of the film, and where do you want it to go next? Where does the MonsterVerse do next? Follow Dirk's advice and let us find out if you guys have anything else to add to that. I'd love to hear it. Dirk, I know this took a little bit because holiday weekend, so we didn't quite do it as early as we wanted to, but I thank you for hanging out and joining me tonight.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and I've been looking forward to this discussion for quite some time.
Me as well.
All right, with that, let's say goodnight.
Good night.
Gruesome Magazine.